Hi David, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Nice. So the topic of today's episode is where AI adoption is adding real value to go-to-market teams. And a reminder, you can view all of these articles we're discussing at coppethill.com/ideas. So to start us off, as we all know, something that AI is used most commonly for in marketing is content creation. This means that tasks can be completed with minimal human effort. But there's also an element of wondering if the sources where AI gets its information are accurate. Where do you think AI can be used in content creation, and when should it be left up to humans?
So I think AI can play a massively productive role in content creation, especially for small and resource-constrained marketing teams, such as many of those in our clients. AI can play a role right across the process end to end. It can help us with researching potential topics, for example, by looking at content from other competitors and influencers in our markets. It can help us with idea generation. It can help us with the writing and authoring of content. It can help us with reviewing that content as a copy editor, and also thinking about how the content can be improved to make it most impactful in terms of visibility, both within search engines and LLMs. However, I think it's really important to keep that human interaction in two particular places in this process. I think the role of the human as the curator and the editor is super important, as well as the individual's writing style. So, for example, in my own content creation efforts, whilst I might use AI to help with idea generation, I will also do my own idea generation and make sure that the ideas that I select to turn into pieces of content are ones that I'm really, really happy that our brand fits with, that we have a clear and distinctive point of view, and that are going to be really useful for our audience. And secondly, in terms of writing, I actually don't use AI to write content. I'll use it to help me review and make suggestions. But if I were to use AI to write content, then I'd want to be really, really specific in giving it the context about my own writing style and preferences to make sure that what we produce is distinctive and interesting for our audience as opposed to generic. So AI can help us right across that process, but we've got to keep the human in the loop as the editor and the curator and the maintainer of the standard of the content.
Nice. Next question. In the article that we're discussing, you point out that more customers are using LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini to research products, rather than standard Google searches. You also mentioned that most software tools claiming to track this aren't actually very accurate. How should a business find out what these AI models are currently telling buyers about their brand, and how can you help them avoid spreading misrepresentations?
So there is a growing pool of providers that offer to help brands and businesses to understand their visibility within LLMs. It's a topic that many of our clients are really focused on right now as they're seeing the behavior of their consumers and prospects change very quickly. The challenge is that many of them are used to being in the world of online search, where we've become very accustomed to lots and lots of information about what people are searching for and how visible our business is, to a world of LLMs where that is almost completely unavailable in a structured way from the platforms themselves. The tools that have emerged are doing one of two things, which is either they are testing what we call synthetic prompts, so they are effectively guessing at what users might be searching for in the LLMs, perhaps by scraping a brand's website or taking some simple qualitative inputs, or they are using effectively a survey panel of clickstream data, so monitoring the browser behavior of a small group of users relative to the internet population. Now, the challenge with that second approach for our client base, many of whom are in niche markets, is it's just not a very big number of people and it's likely to be quite spurious. So our approach is to think about search behavior as a proxy for LLM behavior. We think this is reasonably applicable because we're seeing search behavior change quite quickly. Users are using longer search terms and they're using more exploratory or comparative search terms. So the who, what, where, when, why, how, or the best, the cheapest, the nearest in their search behavior. So we take, for our clients, those search terms that are prompt-like, and we use that as the basis for assessing LLM visibility. Two other things that I think are important to mention. When we're looking at LLM visibility, we must be really careful that the LLM is not using context or history about us as users to filter its results. So if you're sat in the office and you're just using Claude or ChatGPT and you throw in a prompt about your own business, chances are you'll feature really highly because the model has got context about where you work and what you're interested in. So we must make sure we remove and clear that history. Secondly, we're seeing a growing bank of evidence that the responses from LLMs are much less stable than from search engines. So we just need to sample more times in order to have robust data. So that's how we think about assessing visibility in LLMs.
Cool. The next thing we'll be talking about is a familiar challenge, I'm sure, for those working in sales, service, or business development teams, and that is meeting or interview prep. This is a difficult one because while you want to go into it well prepared, there's obviously a correlation between the amount of time you spend preparing and how prepared you are. But I think the real question is, at what point does extra preparation stop being helpful and start becoming a form of procrastination?
I think AI has been a massive game changer, at least in our business, for helping us to prepare for meetings, whether that's with new prospects, businesses we've never met before, or with existing customers. We use it in a couple of different ways. First of all is to help us assemble and organize all of that internal information we have that we want to have at our fingertips when preparing. Those could be our notes from previous meetings or transcripts even with some of our call recordings. It could be details from our CRM about particular project opportunities, especially important when we've got multiple people that might be talking to the same businesses. But we also want to supplement that with external information. So for example, any recent news or updates about a business, perhaps someone we're meeting for the first time, we want to see a bit about their background, where they've worked before, about their role, or any content they've produced that just helps us to make sure we position ourselves and run the meeting in the most effective way possible. So the way we use this is each day we've got a meeting prep agent that will prepare notes and summaries for everything in our calendars, leveraging our CRM, our call recordings and meeting notes. And I personally find that just a super helpful thing to look at every morning to make sure that I'm on point for all of the meetings I've got that day. Of course, the danger is you can over prepare and over analyze. So if you only have 2 minutes to prepare for meetings, then you can't have 20 minutes worth of reading. But that's absolutely something that you can calibrate within your agent to make sure it's effective.
You know, AI automation has recently been integrated into customer service, such as if you were to call, say, Apple or Samsung right now, an AI bot would answer and take key details before sort of filtering you into a pool of people that have a similar situation, which is much more efficient but has received lots of backlash from the public. Another example is automated text responses, which are becoming increasingly common, being used by everything from clothing brands to dentists. How do you think businesses should balance the clear cost efficiency of AI with the risk of damaging customer loyalty and brand reputation?
Well, customer service functions have been using automation long before AI to try and route customers to more non-human based source of information, be that websites or other providers. And AI has certainly been widely adopted to try and continue to drive productivity in customer contact. I'm not an expert in customer contact, but what I see from my perspective in go-to-market is that the number one untracked, unmeasured, unquantified source of marketing lead generation is customer referral and word of mouth. When we do primary research, it's often the number one channel. I heard about the business from a friend, family member, professional contact. And often the moments when you as a consumer or a business user contact an organization and want to talk to a human about a problem, that's a real moment of truth. And getting that right or wrong can make a real impact on a person's likelihood to recommend. So when we've looked at this before, we've taken feedback scores from customer contact and correlated it with future purchasing behavior and found a really, really strong positive relationship. And we do that in order to help quantify the benefit of improved customer service. And as a thought experiment, I often invite my marketing leader clients who are considering big investments in, for example, above the line media campaigns, to consider how that £100,000 or millions of pounds might be used to improve the customer experience and drive increased recommendation versus a more speculative media campaign. And that can really change how they think about the value of positive and great customer experience.
And this next one is our final question for today. Many companies, including those watching this, will be looking to invest more in AI. What would one piece of advice be that they should listen to in order to be successful or more successful?
So one piece of advice I'd give to businesses who are investing in AI is to think about the area that you're trying to impact in terms of a process and a workflow first, before you think about the adoption or imposition of AI. Many times we see our marketing and sales team clients, for really good reasons, looking to adopt AI tools before they've thought about what the underlying process or workflow looks like. And as a result, they're getting unintended consequences, low quality outputs, and actually making themselves somewhat more inefficient as a result. So what I recommend to do is, whether you're thinking about your content creation process, your sales team feedback process, or any other part of go-to-market, write out on a whiteboard or a piece of paper the steps in the process and consider which parts of that process AI is really going to make the most difference in, and which areas are you more looking to apply business logic or business rules where AI is not going to be the most relevant tool. Taking that process-driven approach, I think, is the real key to making sure that AI is used in the right way at the right times and is going to lead to much better outcomes.
Nice. And that's our time for today. I hope you enjoyed, and tune back in next week for another episode of Coppett Hill Conversations.